Thanks, Minister, and good afternoon. So on the new variant of concern, what we do know about Omicron is really not enough. There's a lot more that we don't know and that we need to find out. The key questions really are, is it more transmissible, and how transmissible exactly is it? It certainly seems to have spread very quickly in Southern Africa and in the Republic of South Africa in particular, across many provinces, and the numbers have increased very significantly over a short period of time. It has become the predominant variant in that country already in a very short period of time. So it is likely to be a very transmissible variant, but we will have greater clarity on that in coming days and weeks. There's also the question of whether it produces more serious disease or indeed potentially milder disease than the Delta variant. That isn't known yet. It will be much clearer in the next couple of weeks with a rapidly increasing caseload in Southern Africa in particular. We would expect to see that playing out in hospitalised cases if it is indeed as serious a disease as Delta or more serious. And then there's the big question as to whether there's some vaccine escape, or whether the immunity from the vaccines that have been given around the world is going to be sufficient to protect against transmission with this variant and severe disease with this variant. That isn't known yet. It'll probably take some weeks to find that out. We know that some vaccinated individuals have gotten this variant already, and some people who've been previously infected have gotten this variant, but that's true for Delta as well. So we really do need a few more weeks to understand exactly how much protection from the vaccines that have been given in Australia will protect against this particular variant. So it is sensible for us to take that precautionary approach and hopefully temporary approach, as many other countries around the world have done. I do thank all of those individuals who've arrived internationally for their patience. It must be hugely frustrating to arrive to different circumstances when your expectations were quite different. But I also want to say this to Victorians: this is not back to the beginning. We are not back at square one by any means. The vaccination coverage that we've got, over 90% of eligible Victorians being fully vaccinated already, is absolutely more than useful. It is absolutely critical in protecting them and will, I'm sure, provide protection against this variant as well. We just need to understand how much. We're all taking it seriously, but we're also calm. We know what to do. We know that we need more information, and we know that these few measures that we're taking are appropriate to buy some time to get a better understanding about the Omicron variant. So the measures that have been put in place are really only about those recent international arrivals. They certainly don't detract from all of the great work that we've done with our vaccine coverage. So as I said, it's now at 90.7% of Victorians 12 and over who've received their second dose of the COVID vaccine. That's almost 5.2 million people. That's an absolutely incredible effort. But we do need to bear in mind that the booster provides a really significant additional protection, especially from severe disease. There'll be a lot of people who are still due. We have given 100,000 booster doses, but there'll be close to 500,000 who are due very soon. And so if you're due now, please book in for your booster dose. It provides significantly better protection, even from the very good protection that a second dose provides from severe disease and hospitalisation in particular. But we also have to bear in mind we've still got 1,000 cases occurring in Victoria every day, and I'd like to remind Victorians about that checklist if you're a case. So if you test positive, make sure you're safe and supported. Obviously it can be a serious disease. Stay alert to your symptoms, go to hospital if it's an emergency, and reach out for financial support and food if you require it. You and your household contacts need to be at home. So cases isolate for 10 days, household contacts, must quarantine for 7 days if they're fully vaccinated, or 14 days if not fully vaccinated. Household contacts are the people you live with or who you've spent more than 4 hours with at home, or in accommodation or care settings whilst infectious. You also need to tell your social contacts to get that standard PCR test at a testing centre. So these are your friends, families or associates that you spent time with outside the home while you were infectious. That could be at a pub or it could be at the park. And you must tell your workplace, and you must tell childcare, school or uni if you or your child attended while infectious. It's the workplace or education facility's responsibility to identify and advise your contacts to get that PCR test and to stay isolated until they have a negative result. And obviously there's more on that checklist at www.coronavirus.vic.gov.au/checklist. So a lot more to find out about this variant of concern, but these are measures that will buy us, importantly, the time that we need to understand more about severity, potential vaccine escape, and indeed how transmissible it might be. Thanks.
I guess maybe if you can walk us through the logic behind not shutting the borders to those other countries where the Omicron variant has been detected.
Clearly the caseload globally at the moment is in those southern African countries. It is very likely to be in dozens of countries already, especially in Europe, North Africa, the Middle East. So the broad requirements for quarantine now will pick up those individuals. They'll be tested and we'll have a better understanding. But I think, as the Minister said, it is a Commonwealth matter for all international arrivals, but it would be a step too far. We just need the time to be clear about whether this virus is in this country already and the extent to which it has spread globally. It's going to be impossible to keep out, I imagine. So it's still important to buy time, and we're doing exactly that.
And just on, I guess, this again is a national and even a global issue, but what does this suggest about global vaccine inequities?
Oh, it's a direct consequence of global vaccine equity. South Africa has about 25% fully vaccinated individuals, but it's one of the richest countries in that continent. Vaccination coverage in Africa in total is in single figures. It's appalling, and variants arise when there are opportunities for ongoing transmission with large numbers of people, and this is a consequence of that. So, as many people have said, it won't be over in Australia until it's over globally, or until it's under significant control, and that won't happen until there's much higher coverage, especially in the poorest countries of the world.
And it's still early days just regarding what we do know and don't know about the Omicron variant, but is there a possibility that if it is more highly transmissible, that there could be milder illness and this will be the COVID variant moving forward?
If it's more transmissible than Delta, it'll become the global variant for sure. If vaccination doesn't have as much protection as we would like, the best scenario is that it's a very mild illness. We don't know that, but that's not the worst possible scenario to play out if it produces very mild disease. But we certainly don't know that yet.
Professor, you said that we need a couple of weeks to understand this variant. So could the rules be in place beyond the 72 hours and last at least 2 weeks?
Well, our intention is to review over the next couple of days, and so we'll make a decision at that point about what is required thereafter. I think even in a couple of days we will have a much better understanding in terms of the global spread, but also whether it's here in Victoria, and indeed some of those issues around severity of illness might become clearer even in the next couple of days.
It was really heartening to, sorry, do you have another one on that?
Yeah, just one more on that topic. Would you consider stopping hotel quarantine if the federal government said the international border was to open after 72 hours?
That's not a matter for me.
It was really heartening to hear you say we're not back to square one. Can you tell us more about the things we have going for us and how the revised Burnet Institute modelling plays into that?
Well, certainly just having terrific vaccination coverage for our eligible population is is hugely protective. And we don't know for sure how protective that'll be against this variant, but I would be very confident that it provides a certain level of cross protection, even if it's significantly different variant in terms of how our immune system recognises it. I imagine that being doubly vaccinated is good, and having booster doses will be very protective even for this variant. But we need to see over time. So I think that's hugely encouraging. There'll be lots of countries that will be worried about their levels of vaccination coverage with this variant. So we're in a wonderful position in that regard. We will not be in the position that we were in 12 months ago, facing a variant.
So we're coming into the warmer months now. We've got higher vaccination rates. We don't have a lot of movement between Southern Africa and Australia. Compared to somewhere like Europe, I mean, how well positioned are we to take on this new variant?
Yeah, I think all of those things are in our favour, but we need to bear in mind that this will spread around the world, and we do get travel from a whole bunch of countries that will soon also be facing this variant. And so we need to continue to have everyone who's eligible and unvaccinated stepping forward to get vaccinated. We need to think about what it means for our kids' vaccine, and looking forward to ATAGI's assessment on that, and getting those booster doses in. I would also remind everyone that masks work for any variant of concern. They work for any coronavirus. So whether or not they're mandated, they remain a recommendation if you're indoors. They remain a recommendation if you can't physically distance. So wearing a mask, maintaining your distance, all those hygiene measures, and the ventilation, opening doors and windows for those indoor spaces, all of those things will work against this variant, any other variant you can think of.
The revised modelling from the Burnet Institute saying that the second week in December is not likely to be as bad as previously forecast. Can you tell us any more about that? Is that
Look,
because of our vaccine rate or any other?
Yeah, we've tracked ahead in terms of our vaccine coverage. There's also been some recalibration about exactly how effective that vaccine coverage has meant for cases, and so I think there's good news out of that. But we don't want to just sit back and say 1,000 cases is okay. There are still people dying with that caseload every day, and there are still lots of people who will have the effects of COVID infection. So it's good news for our health system, I think, if we continue to track as the revised Burnet modelling suggests, but we need to bear in mind all of those other control measures.
Professor, you sort of explained the best case scenario with its mild symptoms and the vaccine works. What is the worst case scenario? Do you think we could see lockdown again?
Oh, look, I don't want to speculate. This is what the next 48 hours is to try and find out information. We'll continue to delve into that, but nobody wants to see a variant that escapes completely the vaccine protection that I'm confident will be provided. But if it's highly transmissible and escapes the protection of natural immunity or of vaccine immunity, that would be terrible globally.